Alright guys, so we're going to do a tutorial here for the nightstand. This nightstand is one with 4 legs, and these 4 legs, if you take a look at the screen here, are meant to be a little bit thicker than what our lumber is, which our other nightstand video shows how you can stick with the material that is already the correct thickness. So this right here, in order to achieve the additional thickness, we're going to have to make these legs out of 2 pieces that we glue together, which we'll demonstrate in class. You can see we have a dado cut. That's this notch or slot right here on 2 sides of the legs that is going to go into and hold the shelf in place. We also have some trim pieces that are going to go around the outside to hide those joints so that you can't see them. And then of course we have the top, and you should end up with a nightstand that looks a little something like this when you're all finished. So anyway, the plans here are on our tutorial page, so you can take a look at those and work directly off of those, or you can work right from the tutorial here. So I am going to go into Onshape, and I'm in my woodworking projects folder right now. I'm going to just create a new document and give it a name. And you can call this a nightstand, end table, coffee table, depending on the exact dimensions you give it, and you do have some leeway to be creative with it. We don't want to go crazy with size. We'd like to keep them on the smaller size. The one that I am going to be showing you has an 18 by 18 inch square top, a 14 by 14 shelf, and is about 30 inches tall. So to get started here, you have a lot of different options, and I've done this tutorial a couple times, so I like to do things a little bit differently each time. I am going to do this one starting from the top, so I'm going to start a sketch, place it on the top view, and I always like to turn so that I'm facing perpendicular to that sketch plane, and I'm simply going to draw a square and give it the dimensions 18 by 18, which at this point you guys should be in pretty good shape with doing that. All of our pieces that are not glued up for additional thickness are going to have a thickness of 3/4 of an inch or less. This top piece will be 3/4 or 0.75 inches thick. Then you can see that thickness when we rotate that a little bit. Most of the time when I'm drawing an Onshape, like I've mentioned before, I like to turn off the origin and these starting planes, and you can always turn them back on if you need them for anything, but once I have a 3D object on the screen here, I'm typically using that a whole lot more. So now that I have my top finished, I'm going to rotate it so that I'm looking at the bottom, and I'm going to start a sketch on that bottom to start one of my legs. So I have that sketch started, and I'm going to draw my leg by drawing a 1.5 by 1.5 inch square. And after I draw that square, I'm going to want to dimension where that is going to be located for my overhang. And I like to do a 2-inch overhang. So I do 2 inches from each edge of my top, so that places where my leg is going to be attaching to the top. That's all I'm going to put in this first sketch. I'm going to then extrude. When I'm extruding, I want to make sure that I click on New. Any project that you're doing, you always want to make sure that each individual wooden part is a different part in your Onshape drawing as well. The distance that we want to make this right here is whatever the distance you want between the top and your shelf is going to be. So for my example here, I'm going to do 6 inches. Now that is not the entire leg, but that is going to be the distance between the top and the shelf. I'm going to place another sketch right on this surface, and starting from the outside corner, I'm going to draw a square that is 3/4 by 3/4. And this is going to show the material that is left in the leg where we cut out that notch or that dado joint for the shelf to sit in. So that's all I'm going to have on my sketch right there. I'm going to then extrude that. In this extrusion, I'm going to add that onto the rest of the leg, so it's still going to be that same part. And the depth that I'm going to go with is the thickness of our shelf. So for our purposes right now, we're going to go with 3/4 of an inch. But when you build this piece, you're going to actually cut that out to match the thickness of the shelf that you make. All right. So now I'm going to place another sketch. This sketch is going to be yet again a square. And this square is going to match that first one that we did. So 1.5 by 1.5. This one we're going to extrude, and this is going to come down the distance between the bottom of the shelf and the beginning of your taper. If you take a look back at the plans, you'll see that the legs gradually get narrower and narrower once they get below the shelf all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to start that right here at about 1 inch below the shelf. All right. Now we're going to do something a little different. We're going to come up, and in the top right here, across the top ribbon, you'll see that we have this button called plane, which hopefully you guys have used before, but if you haven't, this creates a work plane, and we don't want to use the ones that are up here because one of them is turned the right direction, but none of them are placed where we want. So what we want to do is we want to come and click on this face right here at the bottom of my leg that I have currently drawn. And if your leg does not, or I'm sorry, if your plane does not say offset, you're going to choose offset right here. Okay. And then we want to choose an offset distance. So I want my table to be about 30 inches tall. 30 inches minus the thickness of my top, which is 3/4 of an inch, minus the 6 3/4 and 1 inch right here, ends up being, let's see here, 8.5 inches. So 8.5 inches subtracted from 30, and I can do that math right here. I can do 30 minus 8.5, and it'll give me a distance where I want the bottom of my leg to be. 30 minus 8.5, of course, is 21.5, which you can also type that number in if you like. Once I have this plane set at where I want the bottom of my leg to be, I'm now going to place another sketch on that plane. Once I do that, I'm going to turn to my bottom view, and I want to click on this Use or Project button, and I want to project that square onto that sketch plane. And then I'm going to draw another square, again from that outer corner, and this one is going to be 0.75 by 0.75 again. And that's all that's going to be in that sketch. I do actually want to place one more sketch. I usually do this one first, but I'm going to place another sketch right on this surface here. And all I'm going to do is place that Use button. I'm going to push the Use button, and I'm going to click on that right there. And you can see that just makes that square as my sketch. That's all I need in that sketch. So now we have a sketch here, and we have a sketch down here. Once you have that, you're going to come up here, and instead of extrude like we've mostly used before, we're going to now use loft. And for loft, we are going to click on one of our sketches, and then the small square in our second sketch. And we want to make sure that we are adding, and you can see that that is going to taper that leg down to a narrower bottom portion. And at that point, I don't need this bottom plane anymore, so I'm going to turn that off, and that is what my finished leg should look like. So next thing that we want to do is we want to come up here, and we're going to be using the mirror tool, but before that we need to place a mirror plane. So in order to place a mirror plane, I'm going to come up here to the plane button again. Now I'm going to choose a mid plane, and I'm going to click on one edge and then rotate around to the opposite edge. you can see that places a plane right in between the two. I'll hit the check mark. I like that plane right where it's at. And then I'm going to use the mirror button. I'm going to keep it on part mirror. I'm going to choose to mirror my leg. Then I'm going to click on mirror plane and come over and click on that plane that I just placed as a midplane. You can see when I do that, they all turn the same color, and by default it goes to add. Make sure you click on new. You can see when it's on add down here, there's only one part. We don't want one part, we should have three. So click on new, and you can see there's three parts like there should be. Click the green check mark, and now I got two legs. I can do that same trick and make another midplane. And use the mirror tool again. And I'm going to choose both of these legs. And then I'll choose my mirror plane. Make sure that I'm on new. And now I have 4 separate legs. So now we are on to the part where we're going to sketch out and, we're going to draw out our shelf. The shelf is a little bit tricky because we have to kind of draw it in place here where we already have these legs, and there are other ways that we can go about doing it. But I'm going to place a sketch on the outside right here. So I'm going to come out to the outside, and then I'm going to turn, and I'm going to be looking at it from this direction right here. And I am going to choose this use, and I'm going to click on both of these legs right here. You can see that that makes the outlines bold. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle from the top of one of those dado cuts or notches to the bottom of the other one. And that gives me a profile there. I'm then going to extrude and click on here. By default, it's going to go the wrong direction. I'm going to flip it the other way. And we could type in the right distance here. But instead, right here where we have our end type, I'm going to choose up to a face, and I'm going to choose the opposite leg's face. Make sure it's on new. Click the green check mark. We have our shelf most of the way done. I'm now going to go and sketch again, now on this edge. Turn it that way. I'm going to use the use button again. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing here, where I'm going to draw my rectangle from the top of one dado to the bottom of the other. Now I'm also going to choose up to face, and I'm going to come out to the edge of this particular leg. And here I want to make sure that I am adding on to that shelf. When I get this error right here, it's just looking for a merge, what to merge to. It says merge scope. You can simply click on the shelf and it should work out. We can do the exact same thing on the other side, or we can also do a mirror feature. So instead of a part mirror, it's a feature mirror. What feature is my last extrusion, and then my mirror plane is this plane that we already have here. And where we get our error, if we hit reapply features, it should work out. And it actually didn't. So I guess we'll try that again. And it should work with mirror, but I'm going to come in here and just draw it the same way I did on the other one. Draw my rectangle from the top of one dado to the bottom of the other. Go up to the next face. And I forgot to choose add. And I have to make sure that I merge it with the shelf. And now I have my shelf in place.